Well, it's, I guess, nice to be having a press conference a little closer to game day than so attached to the last ball game. I feel like it's a lot more focused on what's lying ahead of us, which is obviously a very big ball game for both clubs. National audience, ESPN. It's a great setting for not only the University of Washington, but for the Pac-10. I think it's a great opportunity for our program and for our players. This game obviously is a lot of impact on both teams' remaining season. We are also very aware of some of the issues that may have arisen with the parking and different things. And so I guess part of that is, one, I want to really encourage people to sign up for the shuttles. Go to gohuskies.com. Get signed up for the shuttles because your support is much needed. And it does have a factor on this ball game. Believe me, it does. But I can tell you our kids are excited. We are very aware of the fact that how important these final 3 ball games are to our season. But the fact of the matter is you can't win all 3 football games until you win the first one. And that's the task at hand is UCLA, a team that is in a very similar situation, that's fighting the fight, and should make for a great Thursday night. The weather is such that it can kind of make for a fun evening, and we'll embrace it to the best of our abilities and go out and put our best foot forward.
Is anybody on the conference line who would like to ask a question of Coach Sarkisian? Please go ahead. All right, we'll take questions from the folks who are here first.
Steve, can you figure them out, UCLA, when they go down and thump Texas and they have a couple of route losses? Do you have a handle as an opponent?
In an odd way, they're similar to us in a sense that they're a football team that who, when they play well collectively in all 3 phases, looks really, really good. As we have this year at times. And there's other times when things haven't gone well, it has fallen apart on them as it has for us. And I think it just speaks, one, to the margin of error is so small against some of the opponents we're all playing, especially within conference, that if you don't bring your game and if you're not clean in all 3 phases, and another team in our conference can play to their capabilities, it can be a rough one. And so I think we're just in similar boats that way.
Where's Jake's status at right now?
Well, he was cleared to practice Saturday, and then we'll get a ruling for our medical staff tomorrow if he's cleared to play. They're assessing him daily, not only actively throughout practice and how he's moving, but how he responds the next day. In a perfect world, I'd love to know earlier for us from a game planning perspective, but we'll get a definitive answer tomorrow.
How sore has he been after these?
I think they've been encouraged, honestly. I think he's responded well. I think they've been encouraged that way. But, I don't want to make that statement of what they might make out, but I think they have been encouraged by the way he's felt, after days of work, with pretty extensive work.
Is there any rhyme or reason why tomorrow is the day that they're
No, I don't know. Probably just because it's closer to game day. I'm not really sure.
How's he? He's practiced 2 days.
I think he's performed pretty well. I thought his movement's been good. We've done things out of the pocket with him, which I have to put enough out there for them to assess him as well as for us to assess him. So I can't just leave him in the pocket and make him a robot. I've got to be able to do things and make him use a variety of throws and runs to see where he's at. But I thought he's performed well.
Would he wear a special whatever?
I'm sure they'd have stuff for him.
Not limit your mobility or anything?
No. I think the point to this is if they deem him able to play and they clear him to play, the ruling is that he can go play the game. And if they don't think he can handle the physical nature of a Pac-10 football game, they're not going to clear him to play. That's the reality of the situation.
So based on what you've seen in a football sense, he's cleared football-wise, now it's just up to the medical.
Exactly right.
Can you talk about the challenge of defending their offense and you guys have kind of slightly dabbled in that a little bit?
Yeah, we have. I think the one real challenging thing, more than anything, is their ability to use a variety of formations most notably some unbalanced formations that can get your gap integrity in trouble. That if you don't align properly and if you don't fit some of the runs properly, they can create big gaps and create big seams, and then the little back Franklin can make things happen for him. So I think one of the biggest challenges for our defense right from the time they break the huddle is to get aligned to their formations so that we don't leave gaps uncovered in the run game.
The pistol aspect of it, though, I mean, what is specifically about that?
Well, I think, that they have the ability to run all of the runs they want to run from behind the center and from behind the quarterback. That's the beauty of the pistol, is that most shotgun run teams have the back offset to one side or the other, and it can limit you in a sense of which direction you're running the ball and what types of runs can come. By putting him directly behind the quarterback, it gives you the same variety you would have as if you were under center, but also gives you the ability to run your shotgun runs in both directions. And so it can tax you where you don't get the normal tips and keys from a shotgun running team. You get it right behind center, and it can tax you.
And it sounds like they've kind of kept, though, the West Coast passing offense part of it as well.
To a degree, I think they're somewhat like us. When you go to a backup quarterback, in a sense, it can get shrunk down a little bit, but they have continued to do some of the things they're doing. They're still getting the quarterback on the edge and the perimeter with the play action game, and also sprinting them out, and then doing some things in empty formations with the quick game to get the ball out of his hands.
What was your exposure to the pistol, and when did you decide that you wanted to start kind of dabbling in it?
Well, we studied it pretty extensively in the off season, and and we're continuing to study it to see how it can fit within our system. And again, it's part of the reason is what we've talked about. Traditionally, we've been an under the center offense where a quarterback's under center and the tailback's 7.5 yards behind that quarterback, and we run our plays and we run our runs. Not to be stubborn, we've tried to adapt some to the personnel that we have, most notably our quarterbacks, to get more in the gun, to utilize the run game. And I just don't want to be so one-dimensional where we've lost this power run game with the running back behind the quarterback. So that's why we've adopted bits and pieces of it. I don't think we'll ever go extensively to the pistol, but there are some things to this offense that have some very redeeming qualities, especially for us in what we do.
Did you ever get in touch with Chris Alt to talk to him about it?
No, we just studied it.
Hey, when you were at USC and Neuheisel took over as Bruins coach, what did you guys think of that ad that they ran about the monopoly being over in LA?
I don't even remember it. I don't remember that.
Do you know his roster as well as maybe USC's because of the crossover in kids, or does just?
I know a lot of those kids from a recruiting aspect. That so many of them are Southern California kids, and whether it was through camp or going to games and seeing them, I've known a lot of them. Whether it's Akeem Ayers or Raheem Moore, the quarterback Briho, Jonathan Franklin, so many of those kids that you just know there's a lot of crossover. Now I don't know them obviously to the degree that Rick knows them. He's with them every day, but I know them from a recruiting perspective.
Coach, last week you talked about the troubles with Oregon and having to get guys in special teams as well. Does that change with UCLA just because they're not as up tempo?
Yeah, it's almost to the other degree. They're going to use that. They're going to use the shot clock. They're going to take that sucker down, and they do it to their advantage. They do a nice job with time of possession. So you're going from one end of the spectrum to the other. But that doesn't mean they can't wear you out. They've had some really long drives this year to where they've worn a defense out. And so we've got to make sure we're sound not only on special teams with our backups, but on defense with our backups to make sure that guys can come in and spell guys within drives.
Feel like a more traditional game week in that sense for you?
Well, not traditional in the sense of the offense that they're running. Obviously that there's a lot of nuances within the pistol that we've got to prepare for, so it doesn't make it as traditional that way. But from a depth chart perspective, it's a little bit more traditional than where we were last week, where the substitutions were so critical, not only in between drives, but within drives and on special teams. In this sense, it does feel a little bit more traditional, but the preparation of the game plan is definitely not traditional.
Hey, Coach, the theme of the night is still a blackout. Is that what you said? Or
yes.
Can you give me an idea what are the kids fired up about this? Or
Well, I think so. We're just trying to do something special for our student body to keep them involved and excited about coming to watch us play. We appreciate their support, no doubt, and they have a big factor on our game. And to do something unique for our fans to get them excited. And then also on our front, I think our kids are excited about it. It adds a unique feel to the game for a night game Thursday night, and something that hasn't been done here in, I guess, 80 years now, maybe even 90 years. And so just trying to do something fresh and fun to keep everybody excited about what we're doing.
will there still be purple and gold?
Oh, yeah, they'll still be purple and gold.
Can you say specifically what you're doing as part of the blackout thing?
Well, we've handed out. We're going to have some T-shirts for our student body. We obviously there's some different paint and whatnot on the end zones and different things to kind of keep the theme of the night alive.
Is this something that's kind of an extension of what the basketball team did in the?
Well, I think in general, when you look at what's kind of gone on with our university, that black has been incorporated much more into our school colors in a sense. And before I even got here, I think that it's got a nice feel to it with the colors that we have, and it comes across looking sharp.
Talked about last week.
What's been the reaction? Have you heard pro and con? Or?
I don't have time to listen to reaction.
You talked about competition last week for the young guys.
Yeah.
Is the depth chart, especially in special teams, has that changed at all? Who's really made an impression?
Well, I think a guy like Taz Stevenson has really risen. He played extremely well versus Oregon and over 20 reps on defense. And in turn, he stepped his game up even more, not only on defense but on special teams. Kevin Smith is another guy who has really risen up the depth chart, a guy that has been very impressive. So those two guys are the first that just jump out at me right off the bat. That, man, those two guys have earned their playing time.
What else, special teams wise? What have you been working on? What kind of changes could happen?
Well, we've obviously been working on covering kicks after the last time out. So, but all joking aside, it's a real issue. It's something that I think we've addressed soundly, and have not tried to go overboard in one direction or another. We've addressed it soundly in our schemes and then in our techniques. That's been a big issue. And then two, and in our return game, I think we should all agree and can agree that we can be better than what we're at with the personnel that we have in return in our kicking game, in our return kicking game, excuse me. And in that aspect of it, we put a lot of emphasis on that as well. Field position has been a factor for our first 3 quarters of the football season. I feel like we've struggled to get field position offensively. We started backed up extensively, and in turn, we've put our defense in some tough field position situations by giving up some returns. So if we can swing that a little bit more in our favor, I think more favorable outcomes for us in the final 3 ball games.
One more on the pistol. Is there anything to learn from having played Nebraska and Oregon? It seems to have good running quarterbacks.
Well, they're not pistol teams, but.
Just the general idea of the quarterback making the reads.
Well, I think there's something to that. The kid at Nebraska is an exceptional runner. I mean, he's a 4.4, 4.3 guy. I mean, he can really run. Darren Thomas at Oregon, I think sometimes what gets missed is you think he's just a runner. He might be a better passer than he is a runner, and they utilize the passing game with him more than they have in the past with Chip down there. So you're always trying to learn. That's if we're not, we're being stubborn, and so we're always trying to learn and not trying to think that we're too good to try to get better. And so we're trying to learn, whether it's from Nebraska or Oregon or UCLA for that matter. We're always trying to get better.
Last year you had a couple of big games to end the season. Last weekend the Cougars seemed to get it together. What is it about young teams maturing at the end of college seasons, since neither school has very many seniors?
Well, I think from a coaching perspective, when you've got a young team and you see that at the end of the year, it's very encouraging. And I'm sure Coach Wolf and his staff are extremely encouraged and excited that their team is continuing to get better, and to get that win is exciting for them. What it is, I think partially it is being placed in those moments and being in games and playing in games and learning from mistakes and learning from successes, and maybe not just your own, but the guy next to you or the guy that plays your same position. And then ultimately believing in their opportunity that you have in front of you, that you can win. And I think, to me, that's the biggest challenge, is that belief of understanding late in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter of tight ball games, that you're going to win the ball game and that you're going to make your plays to win the game. And sometimes it takes a little luck to get to that point when you're a team that's growing to get there. But if you can win one, then two, maybe then even three, then that feeling starts to become contagious throughout your locker room, throughout your team room, throughout your sidelines, and that's how wins start to stack up.
You mentioned the other night about how much this senior class has gone through. How much of an intangible emotional advantage do you think that's going to be for them Thursday night?
Well, I want to make sure it's an advantage. I think sometimes those emotional senior nights can be to a disadvantage. You get caught up so emotionally, you start thinking about the past and everything that's gone on, and you lose sight of the task at hand and what's right in front of us. And so it's going to be a real challenge for our seniors and for us as coaches to keep them focused on the task at hand, and hopefully save some of the emotional feelings for after the game in the locker room. I think all of them would agree that the biggest thing here is they want to go out and play well on their last ball game in Husky Stadium, and then maybe reminisce after the game in the locker room with their teammates.
Did something happen to Sean Parker yesterday at practice?
He got a stinger, yeah.
So his
I think he'll be okay. Again, those stingers, as we've come to find out, vary with different players, and so we'll have to check the degree of his strength, of where he's at. We're going to keep him out of contact today to try to get the strength back, but we'll just have to, we'll test him daily up until game time.
And that'd be Taz in the nickel role?
Yes.
Can you describe this senior class maybe in comparison to ones you've had in years past?
Oh, man. I think for these guys, what they signed up for 4 or 5 years ago obviously is different than what they're doing now. And to their credit, from the moment I've stepped on this campus, they've been extremely willing to accept the things that we've tried to do, and to battle through the adversity, to show the mental toughness that they've shown. By no means has their career been easy. And in a sense, it makes me respect them almost maybe more than some other senior classes that I've been around because of what they've been through. And so for me, I just like to see them be able to ride off into the sunset the way they had hoped they would when they first arrived on this campus. And so that'll be the goal of the final 3 ball games.
Steve, I know California's a big state. Did you have any familiarity with Mason while he was in high school, and how can a player of his caliber virtually go unnoticed?
Well, I think the theory is that there's no real science to recruiting. As much as we try to know every great player, and as much as we try to find every great player, teams have specific needs, teams have specific numbers they're trying to fulfill. This is a big country that everybody's trying to recruit through, and to credit to Coach Willingham and his staff of finding Mason and getting him here. And he's a tremendous football player, great work ethic. It's unfortunate we haven't played better defense around him, because he is well deserving of any honor he receives.
Were you familiar with him?
I didn't have NorCal. I was not familiar with him, no.
What are you going to miss most about not having Mason there next year?
The 15 tackles a game he gets.
The possibility of Keith having to start, in a night game, ESPN, any worries about that, his second game?
No. We've touched on it so many times about Keith's personality and what he brings. And he started on ABC last week at Oregon, so #1 team in the country. So he'll be fine. And to Keith's credit, I think he's prepared extremely well. He's preparing as if he's playing. He and Jake have been splitting reps, and so I think as a young player, sometimes that's the challenge of you start one week and then, okay, it looks like the starter's coming back, and then you can sit back and relax and not get yourself mentally prepared to play again. But to Keith's credit and to Doug Nussmeier's credit in getting him prepared to play, he's shown in these last 2 days of practice that he's ready to go.
Coach, what do you expect to see out of Brejo that maybe would have been different from if Prince would have played?
They're really similar, in all honesty, Chris. You know, they're both athletic guys. They're athletic in the sense that maybe not so much that they're just pure runners, but their ability to improvise, their ability to make plays out of the pocket, to create, is something that I would envision out of both of them. So I don't view them so differently in a sense that they stature-wise they look similar, and their style of play is very similar. It fits what they do.